Hello survivors, I'm SurvivalVis, and welcome to a bit of a special episode of Dinosystem. Thanks to a bit of, I guess luck is the only way I can put it, I actually was able to get in touch a little bit with the developer for Dinosystem, and we've been commenting a little bit back and forth about some of the feedback that I've been able to provide with my series. So I want to take the time to, I want to say reward, but really just pay back the attention and actually the time that they spent just to listen in to what I had to say on this series. So I thought I'd do a special little bit of a review and overview of everything I really enjoy with Dinosystem and some of the things that I could see some improvements for it. So I'm just going to randomly go in, just start anything, peaceful mode, sure, just to wander around a little bit as I little spout on. So basically, as I've been playing Dinosystem, my last episode, I'm sure towards the end, a few people who were enjoying the series might not have all really liked how critical I got towards it. But it is something, as you kind of do develop and make a game, you kind of want other opinions and just to see what people are thinking here and there. So I thought this would be a good way just to give a nice big overview of everything I've encountered in the game, I've liked, I didn't like, and any suggestions I can have for improvement. So once we completely load in, I'll go over everything slowly and just give a better idea of what I think might help improve the game and the experience overall a little more. So, I can say I don't exactly have a script, but I do have just a little note thing I've kind of made up. So we'll just start randomly wherever. And one of the first things that I am going to say that I do like quite a bit is basically a lot of everything here in the corner. I love the way they've done your stomach for having how much you eat, drink, and that both those things actually can make you bloated and slow you down and have consequence. So many survival games, even The Long Dark, probably the one I say is the best survival game currently out there, suffers from this flaw that Dinosystem actually doesn't have. And it's that you can eat and eat and eat as much as you want, and sure, you'll get the full amount of calories, but you don't actually have any consequence, like you'd be too stuffed or sick or nauseous or things like that from overeating. Whereas in Dinosystem, it's implemented and is done very well. Another thing, too, as I talk about the stomach, is that eating fruit compared to meat has a lot of different benefits and detriments. Sure, you can live for a while off of eating just fruit, but you're also going to need protein for your muscles and that, and having that little detrimental system to you is very, very nice. So I really want to give props to that about how they treated the stomach, and I think that is spot on and doesn't really need any tweaking as it is. The next one I have that I really thought was good was the exposure system. Whereas you can't really see it now, but when you say actually here we go, now I just got on a cover, partial cover from a tree. You have shade that'll help cool you down, keep you out of wind, little factors like that to regulate your temperature a little bit, and just something that you do have to worry about more if you were surviving. So I'm just going to do a little zoom. Oh yeah, plenty of stuff. We'll just head over this way. So exposure was another one, and then with that, I also want to go over a little bit about health, because I've liked how they've done the health system. As much as bleeding was a little annoying to me how often it was coming across, I did like that you had different severities of it. And that instead of just suddenly, it's completely healed, it just slowly diminishes in how much health you're losing until you're completely healed. Very good implementation of it. A lot of other games where you just get an injury and bleeding is just a sudden, not mandatory, but sort of statutory? I'm just trying to think of the best wording for it. It's basically a stagnant amount that you're bleeding and you need to heal. Whereas in Dinosystem, it's a slowly progressive thing, whereas you can slowly heal over time, or you can speed that up using first aid. Do have to commend you there. Let's see what else I want to mention. The metabolism of your character is another nice touch. A little more in-depth about your weight, whether you're gaining muscle or you're actually getting fat. I know I haven't hit it in the series yet, but when you do get towards winter, you actually probably do want to have a little more fat than you do muscle to be able to endure the cold a little easier. I don't exactly know how those systems are just because I haven't hit that yet myself. That's just, the metabolism is very good there. And then I will open the crafting menu because that's another one I want to go over about really good. Is I love the way they've done the crafting. having to find stones and sharpen them, sticks and clean them and prepare them, and then using those. I like how also what you make, it has its own condition and durability amount. And when you just start crafting, a lot of stuff you make are going to break a lot easier. It's just kind of simple, realistic, how you think it should. Another one that's a lot of the games do is you just have a set, you make this, it's this strong, and nothing ever changes. In Dinosystem, you have progression towards it. If you keep making and building, what you continue to craft will slowly get better and stronger over time because you're getting knowledge with it. So I really have to add to that. While I am on the topic, I do think one thing that might help and add a little bit of variety is just a few small blueprints. Like, one thing is that it took me the 3 episodes to go through and do and actually make our little shelter area. Yeah, I probably could have sped up a little bit. But something where instead of having to do big stone walls, you could even do just small wood walls that are maybe only a quarter of the strength, but it is a little shelter you can make. Another thing, too, was just a temporary thing, like just a lean-to almost, or something where you can get a little bit of cover for yourself, maybe even just, not even you can fit under it, but just a fire pit under it. Something that adds a little bit of a way to sort of get your bearings on the ground and somewhere to start off with. Because when you do first drop into Dinosystem, it is going to take you a while to get your footing and figure out what you should do, how you should kind of operate for yourself. And even with everybody having their own different ways of playing the game and exploring things, it's something that it does help just to have a little starting place, like a little foothold, and then you can start going deeper and further into the systems and learning. Actually, another thing, I'll get into it in just a moment, but before I do, coming across this, another thing I want to applaud is how they've handled getting materials from the carcasses, or the kills. Like, you have meat, you have pellets, you have tendons, and the thing is, you have different amounts for each, depending on what it is that has died and how old and large it is. Very well implemented. A few survival games have implemented where it's just kind of saying that you get one of each, or you get this one, or you can get that one. This one, where you have a lot you can actually harvest from an animal, is very nice, and I do quite like it. It does make the kills that you do come across, or make yourself, very rewarding, and makes hunting a very incentivized and driven process. Now, I think that covers a lot of the ones that really stood out for me that are being very good, and I don't think should be tweaked that much. But now I am going to talk about some of the things that are a little bad, and one of the ones I do have to go into, and it does relate to the dinosaurs and the carcasses, is that the islands don't feel like a well-rounded food chain to me. Like, I believe there are 4 or 5 dinosaurs. Let me just try to list them off quickly by memory. Kind of small to big. You have the Troodons, you have the Ankylosaurs, you have the Triceratops, then you have the Tyrannosauruses. I believe that's it. The problem with the 4 species is actually, let me lay it out pretty easy, and it's kind of obvious once you do. We have a small carnivore, well, medium to small carnivore, the Troodon. We have a large carnivore, the Tyrannosaurus. We have medium to large herbivores, the Triceratops and the Ankylosaurus. The problem is we're lacking a small herbivore. We're lacking that small little herbivore that becomes the food for smaller dinosaurs. That's where, in the last episode, I mentioned something like Dryosaurus, or really any small herbivorous dinosaur would really work out. As much as even the little baby Ankylosaur here. It is nice to have the little guys in-game, but the problem is there's not really enough of them, and this is only a certain time of year. A food chain doesn't really survive without a basic chain. We're lacking that little chain between a medium and before the medium and nothing. We're lacking the small herbivores. How would one be implemented? I'd probably honestly do the behavior the baby Ankylosaur has. If you can just make a Dryosaur or another kind of Ankylosaur or anything that was a smaller dinosaur that was a herbivore, I think would flesh out the island and give you a little more incentive. Now, I don't think they should be these free loot wagons either, where you kind of just can kill it and there's your easy meat, pelt, or tendons either. If they were going to think about putting something in like a Dryosaur, I just use that because I think that's one of the most staple small dinosaurs there really is to come across. it should only give you very little. One piece of meat, which even then I don't think should be something as big as a regular piece of meat you say carve off from an ankylosaur or even a young one. One tendon and one pelt. Maybe not even the pelt because the animal's so small. And it's just because of stuff like that, where it gives you a little sort of curve you can start getting your ground on. How it stands now is you have to either come across a large kill or take down a baby yourself. But during certain times of years, there's not going to be babies you can really go and get after. And I think it's introducing a little herbivore that can be something like that for you, which will really help flesh out the game a little more. And even just having something small running around the island that's just a herbivore will help make the island feel a little more alive. I don't think they should also be something that's super easy to hunt down. Like, you just grab a rock, you walk, there it is, and you can smack it. No, kind of like I smacked my little windscreen there, but something more, basically dinosaur rabbit. It's very fast, you can't go rushing towards it or it'll sprint off and you have no luck getting it. You have to only really get it by throwing a spear, maybe stunning it with a rock, although I'd probably just skip that part and even not even put that in. Just either you have to throw a spear and be very accurate to get the hit on it, or take it down with a bow and arrow. The reason I probably say you should be able to get it with a spear is because the reward for being able to take them down with a spear is getting a bow and arrow, which would probably be more reliable at getting them. But it's something like that which is a little stepping stone to make yourself kind of progress a little bit more. Instead of having it so that way it's this giant leap, kind of a little curve more up as you get the hang of the game a bit more. So that was my little thoughts about just introducing a little herbivore to kind of make things out a little easier. Well, a little easier, but also a little more fluid in how you kind of progress. Another thing I want to talk about, because food was such a big thing about meat and that, I do think fishing needs a bit of fine-tuning. How you do start where you can have it dwindle at only like 1% or 2% as you're trying to fish, I can understand that when you're starting out it's going to be almost impossible. It's going to be very difficult to do. But that doesn't translate well when you're trying to make a game. When you're trying to make a game, you want to have a little bit of a sort of incentive. I have to say it is an incentive to want to do the task to get the reward for it. As fishing is now, because of how almost randomly it kind of feels for the chance of catching a fish, it doesn't feel worth it, almost. Like, you could go a whole day and not really get lucky with it. So I would say fishing could use some tweaking, but I think that also is one of the most recent additions, and that's something where it's just a little bit adjusting the values of what percentage to what skill for your chances of catching anything. With time and a little more feedback, that'll probably grow with as the developer gets more comfortable and flushes out the game a little more. Let me see, what else? Well, fire making, that was one that I was going to have on my list, but actually thanks to the developer leaving a few comments and us having a little bit of communication, they're actually going to be changing some of how that's working in the next update, and I have to give them applause. Very well done that they're recognizing and taking that feedback back. So that's very good there. And I think the only other really point I had that stood out as being a negative to me was when you're trying to gather materials. Like, right here. Let's say I want to get some branches. It takes me every 1 or 2 I get, and even then, the tree's already depleted. Now, I can't really see too well. And for some things, I can agree. Like, say if you're trying to get resin off a tree, maybe you won't get big clusters, alright. But when you're going up to a boulder and you're trying to get a small rock or a large rock, it kind of feels really weird sometimes. Like, this is you're standing... sorry about that, just a little bit of a colds. Well, a cold, basically. It's just kind of gave me a little bit of pause for breath there. But some of the things feel a little weird for how long it takes to find them. Like, when I was making my shelter, it seemed like it took a really strange amount of time to go up to a rock and try searching a few times before you actually got something. I think a little bit of tweaking there in how the gathering skill affects your chances of finding something. Like, let's see. Yeah, I was able to go 4 or 5 searches and not really be able to find a rock, but we're up against a giant boulder. It's tweaks like that I think would improve the game quite a bit. Because right now, it feels... it's the systems you're kind of fighting more against than you're really engaging in. So I think the number of my issues were just that, or some values that need to be played around with, the positives, negatives, high amounts or lower amounts like that, and maybe just tiny introductions of things that make it more of a smoother curve instead of a steep jump, like a small herbivore that you can hunt to start getting yourself a little footing. That was just a little bit of my thoughts about the series, well, not the series, but the game, and that it is shaping up very, very nicely. There are some aspects of the game I haven't gone into yet and covered, but as the series continues and updates do come out, I will happily go in and try to come across them and show them off. The problem I have with a lot of the early access games is that sometimes a lot of other YouTubers, and there's a big one that actually I really want to cover after they release the video, is that they don't go as in-depth as you really should when you consider an early access game is trying to get its feet off the ground. The YouTuber I'm talking about was the Gaming Beaver when he did his video on Dinosystem. All he basically covered was the tutorial, and then that ended everything. He didn't go in and learn about how you craft, how you build a shelter, how you hunt, how you clean off a carcass, nothing like that. And that didn't seem fair to the game, because it had a lot to offer, but the person didn't want to, I don't know if didn't want to, or just didn't really feel getting in deeper to find that out. I wish that's something that more games would take the time to do. Because as early access is becoming more of a thing to release and get people interested in they're basically trying to get themselves started into the video game developing industry. And we should be pushing all for that. We should be trying to help them as much as we can. But if we don't give them the proper time to show off what they're trying to do, you can really be hindering them as well. So I'm probably going to cover more early access games, and I will always leave a disclaimer to remember, the person developing them are humans too. You can't expect and rush everything out of them. Another thing is also to respect when they're releasing a story and doing theirs, and telling the story they want. I'm going to have to say it, one of the stupidest things I've saw was Subnautica Below Zero is being developed right now. If you went to the scene discussions, you would have so many posts about people being upset about playing a female character. They're trying to tell a story. Let them just tell their story and experience it as you will. Video games can range from anything from being your story in their world to basically playing an interactive movie. So I wouldn't hang yourself up too much on, they want to tell the story from this person's perspective, but we don't like playing as that. Throw that aside because you're just going to diminish yourself from some of the great experiences that are out there. So that's basically kind of my views, early access. I'll try to support any early access developers that I see and come across that are really good and are trying to communicate and really get a foot out there. So for the developer of Dinosystem, I hope this little video helped to kind of highlight some of my feedback about it and any development ideas you may have. I did suggest just one small herbivore. I'd honestly like to see kind of a pyramid almost, where you have, say, 2 or 3 species of small herbivores, the 2 medium herbivores, maybe even a sauropod or something really big, but I wouldn't worry too much about that. And then also a little bit of a pyramid for the carnivores, like the Troodon, I'd probably say, is a small to medium-ish carnivore, and the one Triceratops is the apex, the one Tyrannosaurus species, where it's really good as an apex. So that's just my thoughts about something that could be implemented, try to flesh out and also improve some of the states of the game. So thank you all very much for watching. To the Dinosystem developer, thank you very much for the time, and I'm honored that you spent your time to be able to watch the video and take my feedback. I hope it helps you, and I really hope that more and more people can see what you put together, because it really is an up-and-coming game. So, as always, survivors, please remember to do take care and stay alive, and I will see everyone in the next video. Goodbye.